We're going to share with Francisco Garcés, who is in charge of the Presidential Commission for the Recovery of the Central University of Venezuela. Well, Francisco, welcome. Well, we're going to hear good news, in this case, I imagine because this work was started quite some time ago. The Central University of Venezuela's infrastructure was facing many difficulties. It's very big, right? It had been declining, but well, the initiative was taken and significant and important work began to be done, and now we're going into this new phase, right? So you can explain to us a little bit about what it's all about, and welcome, of course.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Greetings to you, of course, and to everyone watching us. Well, certainly, right? The Central University of Venezuela, but specifically the University City of Caracas, right? The Central University of Venezuela, its university city, has been declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO for about 25 years now, right? This implies a significant commitment to the conservation and maintenance of this space. First of all, I think it's worth highlighting what this university city is. A space of around 200, if we add up all the land owned by the university in Caracas, which houses a group of just over 89 buildings, sports facilities, cultural facilities, and 108 works of art that make this complex an exceptional ensemble of architecture, engineering, and landscaping. This is truly something that, in the global context, is among the 5 universities declared as World Heritage Sites, of which 2 are modern heritage sites, the University of Mexico and the UCV. So, in this context, we have to know that our university is an architectural jewel of infrastructure that, having been declared a World Heritage Site, certainly entails significant commitments regarding its operation, maintenance, and conservation. Certainly, as you rightly add, this maintenance and conservation deteriorated to the point where a section of a corridor collapsed. This certainly attracted attention, and from there, let's say, the state's commitment to this heritage of humanity was assumed and this recovery work began. Immediately, the national government, President Nicolás Maduro, appointed a presidential commission. This presidential commission, together with the university authorities, devoted itself to the study, to the characterization of the situation, and, in particular, all this work began, work that has been intense, which is about to complete 4 years, which has already completed 4 years, in which figures have been recovered, right? Let's say, because the first thing was to restore the university's functionality, that is to say, the university's priority is to give classes, teaching, research, and its research work. The conditions it had, especially during the pandemic, caused this deterioration to be very noticeable, right? But then the first thing was to recover its infrastructure to make it work. It would be classes, research. In total, 686 classrooms were restored, a little over 150 laboratories, 350 bathrooms, and 660 offices. Almost 220,000 square meters of roof were restored and waterproofed. We are talking about around 20 soccer fields that were waterproofed to ensure that, let's say, the internal activities of the buildings could take place properly. In total,
this includes, the Olympic Stadium and the University Stadium.
Not yet, that is separate, let's say, from the university campus, right? Or from this work. However, some investments were also made in that sense, as well as the University Clinical Hospital, which has also been completely renovated and rehabilitated. And there are several things that the gym is talking about in terms of sports activities, right? The building where the swimming pool and the university gyms are located was also completely renovated, but renovation and reconstruction work has been carried out in some cases, and even renovation work has been carried out on the heritage. This heritage has been restored to its original condition. Some of
the works of art, Francisco, that at some point were damaged and that caused a great deal of discomfort and, of course, particular irritation due to their significance, have also been restored.
Some of them have been recovered, especially some of the most significant or most deteriorated ones. One of them, for example, is the mural that is in the Faculty of Sciences, another, which was also in the Botanical Garden. Major work was done. The clock, which is also considered by some to be a work of art, which it certainly is, was rebuilt and renovated. The clock had not chimed for several years. That is to say, I don't know if you remember, one was there, one heard the bells, well, they rang again, and once again it was possible to completely rehabilitate the tower, which is a truly significant architectural and engineering work. The work, Francisco, on the construction work that is, for example, in the spaces near the main hall was also recovered. Yes, the main hall has undergone rehabilitation. The main hall had problems because during the pandemic it was closed, and with the humidity it developed a fungus that made it unusable. There, important work was done with scientists from the university to remove that fungus and then be able to enter it again and do the recovery work. Evaluations were made of the entire infrastructure, which today puts us, including the air conditioning, which is also an important work that today puts this room into operation for the entire university community and, of course, for the country, knowing that this is one of the rooms with the best acoustics nationwide, but also one of the best acoustics worldwide. Concert Hall, Francisco. The concert hall is currently operational, but it is undergoing a renovation process for its air conditioning and climate control. As I asked you earlier, the works of art, the murals near the entrances to the Aula Magna, were they also restored? Completely. They have all been restored and are in exceptional condition. If you, for example, walk around the Aula Magna, but also the covered square of the Aula Magna, you will find that the entire area has been completely renovated, it has been waterproofed, it works perfectly, but the original lighting has also been restored. There were many changes to the regional lighting that Villanueva had installed. It has been completely restored and, for example, during the day when you walk by there you see the shadows of the openwork blocks that we have, but at night you also have warm lighting that is absolutely beautiful. I'm
going to interrupt you because we are taking a break. We'll be right back to continue talking with Francisco Garcés, who is in charge of the Presidential Commission for the Recovery of the UCB. We continue talking with Francisco Garcés, who is in charge of the Presidential Commission for the Recovery of the Central University of Venezuela. Well, we'll continue talking about the recovery. For example, you mentioned the landscaping, what used to be a no-man's land, and all of that has been recovered.
Yes, look, that's been an extraordinary job. We had the participation of two professors, Professor Juan Manuel and Professor Getty de Cross, who are professors at the School of Architecture, who have done an exceptional job. Let's say a little over 200,000 square meters of landscaping has been recovered. This means that, in addition, a little more than 3 kilometers of new irrigation was installed, and today you pass by Carlos University, and everyone who sees us, and you will find beautiful landscaping that has been restored in terms of the species that were there. In other words, these species were taken care of. Let's say, some that did not correspond to the original project were transplanted, and, in addition, the condition of the original species was restored, which today, makes for a completely beautiful landscaping. Personally, I and everyone who goes are impressed not only by seeing all the green grass, but all the species that are cared for and in a state of, let's say, blooming.
Right? How great. Look, the one I asked you about before starting the conversation, Francisco, the Central University Library building is peeling, the tiles have been falling off. What's there? What are they going to do there? How are they going to work? It's a beautiful piece of work, isn't it? At least.
Yes, one of the university's features is the vitrified mosaic that was placed in large sections in many parts of the university. In some areas, as you mentioned in the Central Library, there has been a detachment. It is a very large facade that is also exposed to the sun for a long time and has been detaching. We are currently conducting a research project with the Materials Institute in the engineering school, in which the original mosaic has been characterized, its function, and its colors, in such a way that it can be adequately restored. They are doing, let's say, laboratory tests to place it in a more optimal way on the new facades than on the same facade from which it has detached, which is not only in the library, but in some others. Let's remember that it has been almost 70 years in which they have been exposed on these walls and they have worked quite well. So, what is missing in this process? By the way, today you have a tour, right? What does the tour consist of, and then we will talk about what is missing. Okay, today we will be doing a tour with the media in which we will visit the main elements that have been recovered, the work that has been done, and finally we will have a final meeting after the tour at Casonibara, which has also been completely restored. The house is part of the original estate where the university was housed and where the liberators stayed with José María Vargas, where they drafted the university's Republican statutes in 1827. What is missing? Well, of course, the first thing that needs to be done is to maintain it. There is a full maintenance team there. More than 300 people work every day on the maintenance of its areas and buildings, but in addition, some auditoriums still need to be recovered, and what is Francisco's, for example?
For example, the Humanities Auditorium and the Pharmacy Auditorium are still missing. If it was very emblematic in the past, it is still
pending. There are still some pending. Some buildings like the Metallurgy building, there is also work to be done there, but in addition, some original conditions must be restored. Look, for example, we are missing some warehouses. I don't know if you remember, warehouses that are on the right side, for bioanalysis. Well, those were temporary buildings that were later occupied and remain permanent. However, in the Declaration of Heritage and Humanity it was established that these structures must be removed to comply with the guidelines of the original project. And well, this is part of the administrative work that the university authorities are carrying out to decentralize this work under the administration that, of course, each of the faculties has. Now, look, the buildings of the Faculty of Medicine, the building of the Institute of Tropical Medicine, all that too. Absolutely. Look, there has been an extraordinary, beautiful job. The work they have done, and that is something that must be recognized, right? All the professionals who trained here gathered here, most of them professors from the School of Engineering, Architecture, and the Central University of Venezuela, restorers, and even international participants. They have done research, study, and compilation work. One of the things I can tell you is that over time we are used to seeing university buildings in white or ivory. Well, that has changed. The original palette of the buildings was recovered, and today you can walk in and see a color palette that reflects that study or staging of 1950s modernity, of which Villanueva was a pioneer and is of course a very prominent exponent worldwide. The open-air plaza there has also been work done.
Well, part of the open-air plaza that has been recovered is, let's say, the clock that is part of the covered plaza, as well as the communications building that is still pending. One of the things that is still pending is the museum building.
There was OB, for example. Where OB used to be and where the Federation of Centers and part of the Secretariat's services are located. Federation now, well, there's still some left. Approximately how much has been invested in the recovery of the UCB spaces? Well, look, it's a very significant investment. I can't give details because we, personally and the team of the Presidential Commission, don't handle the costs, but rather the issue of the technical aspects of the intervention and renovation and rehabilitation of this work. To finish, we've already run out of time. The buildings outside the city walls, for example, in Amarque, the Faculty of, Veterinary Medicine, the Faculty of Agronomy. In Veterinary Medicine and Agronomy, recovery work has also been done, which has put a large part of this infrastructure into operation. And well, there are others outside the city walls in Anzuat and other places, which have been rehabilitated by the university itself. And well, in some cases with the support of local authorities.
Okay, very good. Well, let's continue on this path to recover this historical heritage that is the Central University of Venezuela. Francisco, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's take a
break. The return, art and entertainment in the present. For more than 25 years, Opticolor has been the optician of Venezuelans. With more than 80 stores throughout the country, it offers quality, variety and the best prices on frames and sunglasses. In addition, you can pay for the best lenses in comfortable installments and without interest. At Televicolor, they see you better.